So last week I asked you what the collective noun for PowerBooks was, and we haven't got an answer to that yet, but I've got a suggestion for a collective noun for Amstrads, and that should be a sugar of Amstrads. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Your eyes are not deceiving you, there are two Amstrad PCs here. So what have we got here? We've got two Amstrad PC2086s. So these are XT class machines from 1988, and they're the follow-on from the very successful PC1512 and 1640. The PC1512 is my all-time favourite computer from the 20th century. I love it. I've got a 1640 as well, but I still prefer the 1512. And the reason for that is that it was my first PC compatible. This is the follow-on generation. I completely bypassed these. I have no interest in these at the time. I went straight to a 386 made by a company called Tico, if anybody remembers them. And so these kind of passed me by a little bit. This range came in three processors. You had a 286, a 386, and this 8086 base model. And what we're going to do today is have a look at these two specific machines that I picked up recently, have a look at them, see if they're working, and just see what they're capable of and why they're different from the PC1512 and 1640. So both these machines came from the same place. It was a lady who was selling the contents of a garage. Her husband had been a builder, and he'd picked this up in an office clearance. Looking at the specification of these, which will come to in a bit, and some other stuff that came in the bulk lot, it looks like this was from either a solicitor's or an estate agent's office. So apart from that, I know nothing about these two machines. I don't know if they work. They came with the keyboards, and as you can see, they're both a bit yellowed in places. This one's not too bad down here, but the top right corner is yellowed, and this one's very yellow all over. Both base units are very yellow, apart from the disk drives. Keyboards also similarly quite yellow. What these don't come with is mice. So at this point in Amstrad computing history, the keyboard and the mouse interface was proprietary, and allegedly that was because Amstrad didn't want to get sued by IBM. They'd already reverse engineered a BIOS clean room so that they didn't have to pay any IBM royalties, and they didn't want to have to pay IBM royalties for any kind of accessories that were included, including the keyboard connector and the mouse, etc. So they came up with their own system, but that does mean you need a specific keyboard and a specific mouse for these to work, and that's why the keyboards are actually branded with the 286 logo. So two machines here, they are the base spec. In fact, they're not the very base spec, they're one up from the base. So these are the PC2086D units, which D stands for dual disk drive. So these have two 3.5 inch drives each. There was a single drive model, and also there was a HD30 with a 30 megabyte hard disk internally, but just one single floppy. So this is kind of the better of the low range ones. There's no hard disk in these. So I don't know if they work. I'm hoping they do, at least partly. They are complete in the sense that they've got this key in the side, which apparently is important to enable you to be able to turn it on. They come with the monitors, but again, you can tell this is a basic spec one because both of these, although they're VGA monitors, they are the monochrome VGA monitors, and they're the smallest size, the 12 inch. So let's try turning them on and see what happens. Let's turn on, let's turn this one on first because it's further away. Okay, so I've turned the monitor on, we've got a green light, I heard it power up. It's got a big red switch on the back, it's a bit IBM-esque, interestingly. Let's turn the computer on. Okay, well, as you can hear and see, that has come on immediately. It sounds like a hard disk whirring up, but it's not, it's just the fan. So it's giving us a message, Amstrad PC2086 640K version 1.4, copyright 1988 Amstrad. Please set time and date, please fit new batteries, insert a system disk into drive A, and press any key. So basically these are very similar to the 1640 and 1512 in that they take 4 AA batteries to provide the real-time clock. So we haven't got those fitted on these, obviously, and I'm glad they were stored without them, so that's really good. But the fact it's come on is very good. The monitor works, the PC itself works, the fan's purring away. We need some floppy drives to come and make this system functional, but we don't know if these floppy drives are working yet. Let's try turning on the other one and see what happens. So again, we've got a green light. Now, you also have an image. There's no fan on this one. A fan hasn't started spinning up. It's completely silent. Amstrad PC2086, 640K, version 1.4, copyright 1988 Amstrad PLC, same two messages. Please set time and date, and please fit in your batteries and insert system disk. So basically they have both come to life. That's very rewarding. The fact there's no fan in here, fan noise, makes me think that maybe there is a problem internally, but I mean the 1512 kind of infamously came with no fan. It was a silent machine. Steve Jobs would have been happy. The 1640 later had a fan added because of some disinformation by IBM. So maybe this one does have a fan fitted and this one doesn't. I don't know. I haven't looked inside these yet. But they both come on. That's very good. This image is a little bit shaky. This one's a little bit more solid. So it may be that this monitor's past its best, maybe. They're covered in dust and it looks like plaster residue, which would make sense if it's come out of a builder's garage. So they're both quite grubby. So the enter key works on that. The enter key works on that. And random keys work on that. So it's very likely both keyboards work. He says caps lock key is not coming on. The num lock is, it could be just that the caps lock key light is very, very dim. The num lock one is very dim. Okay, so what we need to do next is find some floppy disks that we can put in these drives, see if the drives are working. So this came with DOS 3.3 originally, and these drives are 720K low density ones. So there are, on the forums, there are some suggestions that these can take the higher 1.44 floppies. There are some people saying there are, some people saying they don't work. Potentially we could try that, but we're going to make up some 720K floppies and try and get these to boot. Okay, so it's been quite hard to find. In fact, I haven't been able to find the original OEM version of Microsoft DOS 3.3 that comes with these computers. The closest I found is the 3.3 from the Amstrad PC1512, which is the crazy laptop that came out at the same time as these in the same year. So that also comes with DOS 3.3. It's also got a couple of extra things on because of the special nature of the laptop. But hopefully they should work in these. What we don't know is whether any of these floppy disk drives work. I'm going to use the one closest to me just purely because I can reach that keyboard a little bit easier. So these are not quite new old stock double density discs, but these are getting a little bit harder to find. Good quality working discs that are real double density, not just high density with the hole covered over. So putting this in here is a little bit risky because it may get damaged by the drive itself. So I've assumed the drive on the right is the A drive, and of course the left one has come to life. So let's try that again. I was thinking about it, but it's not sounding like it's reading. Oh, I'm now getting some seek sounds that are very, very quiet. It's a very quiet drive. Okay. Looks like it's working. Okay, it's booted into DOS 3.3, as it says here. It's loaded a TSR by the looks of it that allows you to control the LCD built into the laptop, so we don't need that, and we don't want to press any keys on here that might make this screen blow up. So caps lock is definitely on. Okay, it's reading the drive fine. Let's just do that a little bit more compact. So all the usual stuff. We've got an org dot bat for the organizer that came with the PPC. We've got all the usual DOS tools. So let's try F-disk. I don't think there's a hard drive in here, certainly can't hear one. F-disk's not on there. Maybe it's on the other drive, the other floppy. So I'm going to put that in drive B. And we've got the luxury of having both drives at the same time. Is it going to work? It is. Okay, so this also has some specialist software for the PPC, for example, Mirror. So Mirror was a comms program because the 640 version of the PC had a modem built in. This doesn't have a modem built in. So it's F-disk on this disk. No, that's not a surprise. PPC didn't officially come with a hard drive, so the fact that it's not on there is perhaps not a surprise. Okay, so this computer definitely works and can read off both of these floppy drives. We don't know if it can write yet. I think that might be a step too far just at this moment. Let's see if the other machine works. So the display on this other machine is a little bit dimmer. I haven't played with the brightness and contrast controls, which are on the far side of the monitor, which I can't reach. But hopefully you can see that on the screen. So there's a floppy in drive A. Let's see what happens. The lights come on again. It's very quiet. These drives are very, very quiet. But it is seeking, I just hear it. And there you go. Yeah, looks like it's able to read all of that. Let's put the floppy disk in the other drive, in drive B, and see if we can read that. Perfect. So it looks like both floppy disks in both machines are working, which is brilliant. So we have two essentially fully functional Amstrad PC2086s. So what we're going to do now is have a look at them in a bit more detail. I'll move one of them off the desk so that we can see how it's configured, what it's made of, how it all plugs together, and how it's different from the 1640 and 1512. Okay, taking these apart is very similar to the 1512 and 1640. There's two big screws at the back and there's two big screws at the front. Front two are covered by these little covers. You also have to take out all of the blanking plates. So these machines have three 8-bit ISO slots, same as the 1512 and 1640. So the screw at the back here is quite rusty and it's being a little bit reluctant to come out. There we go. I was expecting a very long screw on the 1512, 1640, they're very long screws, but that's a very short one. So in true Amstrad style, these are not metal cases, they're entirely plastic. The only metal bits were the bits that were required to keep down RF interference, such as the panel across the front, across the top of the motherboard. Everything else is pretty much plastic. Not complaining, it meant these machines were £400 instead of £1,000. There we go, there's a long screw. And you can tell by the cracks that these have never been undone. Okay, so that should be all we need to do to take off the top. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that because of the battery holder here, there's going to be a cable between this top panel and the inside. Oh, haven't taken off the trapdoor, let me do that. There we go. So here there's a cable for the battery compartment, as we suspected. And there we go. So inside things are a bit different. So one of the main differences is that the power supply in these units is actually in the base, and they have their own power cord. On the 1512 and 1640, the power supply is in the monitor, and there's a special cable that goes around the back to power the system unit. These are truly a bit more modular, a bit more like what everybody else was doing at the time. There's 3 8-bit ISA slots and a 4th one, which is kind of hidden when the case is on, and that's for the controller card for the hard disk. Also here you have some DIT switches which are visible from the back, and that allows you to change the graphics mode. There's a lot of rust on this RF shield, and I found that with pretty much all Amstrads from this period, they get very rusty. Because this one was stored in the garage, it probably didn't really help. Down this corner there's a little speaker for the beep. Got 2 floppy disk cables, and it looks like, yes, so these are on connectors rather than being hardwired into the motherboard, which they are on the earlier series. So pretty standard layout from Amstrad, apart from this power supply being here, which also is acting as a brace across the top of the unit by the looks of it. So that gives it some structural integrity. So putting this back together is obviously the reverse process. A bit like the 1640 and 1512, the plastics aren't super great quality, but equally they have survived. They're not chipping or breaking off, which often happens with plastics from this era. Now I'm looking at you, Apple. Now I'm just going to leave the ISA slots open for a bit, and you'll see why in a moment. So in my little box of goodies, we've got something which is very relevant for this machine, and that is an Amstrad 2400 board modem. Perfect for in this machine, should we wish to. More importantly, in my box of goodies, I have these. So these were very common upgrades at the time. So these are what are generally referred to as hard cards. So you have a hard disk and a hard disk controller on an ISA backplane. In this case, they're 8-bit. So these are perfect for upgrading your PC to an XT. I've got 2 of them. I know one of them doesn't work and I know one of them does, but I can't remember which way around it is. So we're going to try them both. In my PC1512, I currently have an XT IDE with a compact flash card on it, and that works really, really well. I haven't got a spare one though, so we're going to try these good old-fashioned physical hard drives, see which one works. I think it's this one. This came out of a salvaged... That's interesting. So at this end of the expansion bay, in Amstrad style, we've got the excess of the power cable that comes in through the back. So there's no IE connector here, it's hardwired in a cost-saving manner, but that does mean it gets in the way a little bit of these expansion slots if you're using a full-length card like the one we're using now. Okay, it's in. Just going to put a screw in to stabilise it because it's quite a heavy beast. So one thing that has been upgraded is that this retention bracket screws directly into the metal, not into the plastic. So that is a little bit more robust than the previous generation. I'm going to leave the top cover off because we may have to change this. But let's get the monitor back on, see if we can boot this off the hard drive. So the other thing to talk about is the keyboard and the mouse. It's pretty standard AT style layout keyboard, function keys across the top, keypad on the right. The mouse was Amstrad's own design, 2-button mouse, a little bit on the small side, not particularly ergonomic, and does have what appears to be a serial connector but is not. It goes in the proprietary port on the side next to the keyboard. Not bad, but not great, these mice. So the hard card is in position. It's a full-length slot device. Okay, so hard card is in, let's power it up, see what happens. So it's detected the hard card. It says no drives found, so maybe this is the one that doesn't work. Let's just power cycle it. I can't hear the hard drive spinning up, unfortunately. Well, just on the off chance I power cycled it one more time and I can hear the hard drive spinning up. So this hard drive is probably 40 years old at this point. So I'm not surprised it was a bit reluctant to start. It's recognised there is a drive, although it's not telling me what it is. Please fit new batteries. Exactly. Please fit any batteries. I can hear the hard drive seeking, so I think it is going to boot from it. Okay, yeah. Do I want to load boost? Probably not, as I don't know what it is. RAM drive invalid parameters, so on the machine it came out of, it obviously had extra memory. Virus card is installed. Oh, we have a little menu too. So it looks like this hard card was taken from a machine that had office productivity stuff on it. There's nothing there listing games. Got WordStar, so word processing, spreadsheets, different word processing, gem, which some of you may be familiar with. 386, which is a X-Tree clone, back to the MS-DOS prompt, but we're already there. GW Basic for a bit of basic programming, Lotus 123 for another spreadsheets, Quick Basic, graphics. What is graphics? Freelance graphics, Graphics Workshop, I'm not sure what that is. DT Paint, don't know, but it's obviously a paint program. And typesetted PC, so that may be desktop publishing. So it looks like the hard drive is working, which is good. Now this isn't a review of this hard drive, it was just an example to show you that they were available. And if you had a double disk model like this, one of the things you probably do is put a hard card in it at some point because you get frustrated. So we're now in VGA 16 color mode, but as you can see, this is a monochrome display, so we're getting different shades of grey. So there you go. So we've now got VGA pseudo color because it says a grayscale. That's how this monitor works. There was a color version of this 12-inch screen, which would have looked very sharp at this size, and then there was a slightly larger 14-inch color screen as well. But I think it was only still 640 by 480. So 386 as is an X-Tree clone. I can't remember which came first. So maybe the X-Tree was a clone of 386, but they both do very similar things, and it's a very similar sort of layout. You have a tree structure on the left. On X-Tree you've got all the functions down at the bottom. Here it's on the right hand side, but it's the same sort of thing. You get this tree structure of your hard drive. So on here, for example, we've got 123, we've got basic, we've got that thing called boost, we've got check it. Might be worth investigating check it. We've got elite, very good, one of my favorite PC games of all time. File Easy, I'm not sure what that is. Freelance graphics, that's going to be, I've got some games on there, so they weren't in the menu, but they're on the hard drive. These are all text-based games from memory, so they would suit an XT very well. And then you've got Gem, so you've got the whole Gem system. You've got Gem apps. I wonder what Gem apps we have installed. Just Paint, so this is the default Gem install. Images. These are Gem images, so these are obviously perhaps samples that came with Gem. LL's almost certainly lap link. MC, maybe I put that on there. I've named this directory Midnight Commander, which is a clone of Norton Commander. I bet if I go in here it is Norton Commander. Yes, there it is. So that's obviously something I put on at some point in the past. Not Utilities 45, very likely I put that on too. SuperCalc 3, SpinRite 2, SpinRite 3, SpinRite 5. Yeah, looks like I have been using this hard card a little bit. Tax old one, or we probably shouldn't go in there. Okay, 70, so that's fine. Toolkit, not sure what that is. That's the antivirus toolkit, check virus. 386, which we're looking at the moment. Some utilities that I don't recognize. WebPet 51 and XPRS. Express, that's WordStar Express, isn't it? So let's just exit from here. Let's go into Norton Utilities. So if we go down to the bottom, we have system information. So this will tell us a little bit more about this 286. which is completely misidentified as an IBM PS2 Model 30. So obviously that's not correct. DOS 3.2 would make sense because that's what was probably on this hard card if it came out of a Amstrad PC1640. VGA, so that's one of the differences between the 1640, the 1512 and this generation, is that they were all upgraded to VGA. There was no CGA or EGA kind of options. What else have we got? 1.9 times the speed of an XT, so it probably is an 8 megahertz processor, which again makes sense. So let's quit that. Let's go to check it, see if that tells us anything different. So check it 4.1. And this has correctly identified it. It's an 8086 XT machine. No math coprocessor, 64K of RAM. That was standard across the range. There was no 1512 equivalent model. But no extra memory. It hasn't got more than one. The 640K doesn't even have 1 megabyte. It's got VGA, as we discussed. And then this is the other thing that's different. It's got 720K drives, which are the 3.5-inch variety. The 1512 and the 1640 came with 5.25-inch drives, the 360 version. You could get aftermarket 3.5-inch 720K drives on those, but it was never available from Amstrad Direct. And in fact, my 1512's got one of each. This also had the option of having an external 5.25-inch drive. On the right-hand side, there is a connector to plug that in and a switch to disable one of these drives when you're using an external one. Parallel and serial ports, we know that's all fine. It's got a mouse port, but it says none here because of this proprietary Amstrad stuff. No joystick port. That's all okay. Let's have a look at the memory map. So in theory, this should all be full of conventional memory, and this should be pretty much empty apart from any BIOS ROM cards that are installed in that space. So let's have a look. So yeah, so we've got this much of the 640K occupied by programs in this case. Check it. That's free. We've then got 128K of video RAM up here. And video ROM. An unknown ROM. The disk drive ROM. Another unknown ROM. Then that's empty. So there's no upper memory blocks available because we haven't got 1 megabytes installed. And then that's the system ROM right at the very top. So totally as expected, no surprises there. Not sure what those unknown ROMs are. So there's no CMOS memory on this machine, and that was the same as the 1512 and the 1640. You had to run a program called NVR to access any of the kind of equivalent of the BIOS settings. Okay, so basically you can see how this would be a great productivity machine. You'd have your WordStar on one floppy drive, your data files on the other. You wouldn't necessarily need a hard drive, but they do make things quite a lot nicer. So I don't think there's anything else in here. I've got Elite. So I've got Elite on here, but I don't have a manual to hand, so when it asks me for the copyright protection, we're not going to be able to pass that. But it is the standard DOS version with a line-based and shaded-based version. I think it was Christmas of '87. I played Elite non-stop, pretty much for 10 days to get to Elite status. So I don't think there's anything else on here we need to look at. So the main reason we installed that is just to demonstrate how the machine works. I quite like this. In terms of the overall build, it's exactly the same as a 1640 in that you've got a monitor on the top, you've got this recess here to put the monitor into. It's slightly more low profile. It's got this kind of wedge shape, so it's higher at the back, gets flatter, and then it goes even flatter at the front here. It was very reminiscent of some of those Apricot early attempts at IBM compatibles. It's not particularly well made, but having said that, as I said, it's lasted all of this time, so it can't be that bad. The electronics seem to be working just fine, despite being nearly 36 years old. So that's pretty impressive. So I'm going to keep this one. I'm probably going to sell the other one. I probably am going to keep a hard drive in it, but I think this is going to be a nice little machine. And what I'm definitely going to do at some point is pick up a colour 12-inch monitor to go with this. I think it's going to make a great little compact XT to have fun with. I'll also be on the lookout for one of the external drives for the 5¼ inch drive, and then that way we can move things between this and the 1640 if needed. I picked up a expanded memory board a little while ago. That potentially could work in here. It's a bit crusty, so I'm not sure how well it works. Some of the memory chips may have failed by now as well, so that will need a good clean before we use it. But potentially we could add a megabyte or two of memory to this machine. That would be an interesting thing to do from a productivity point of view. No use for anything else really. Noise wise, that fan is a little bit tiring, but it's not an unpleasant frequency, or it's not overly loud, but it is definitely there. My 1512 totally silent, and I love that, especially with the XT ID, and it's completely silent, no hard drive noise. But I am a big fan of the hard drive noise. If we run a check disk, have a listen to this. I know XTID can simulate hard drive activity, but there's nothing quite like a real spinning hard disk. Anyway, so this is the Amstrad PC2086. Hopefully you enjoyed our first looks around it. We're going to clean this up, and we're going to probably feature it in some future videos, particularly if we get the expanded memory card working. And I've got a new XTIDE replacement on order, and that would also make a really good addition to this particular computer, but it's probably going to go in a 1640 instead. But that's another video. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll see that when it comes up. In the meantime, if you like this one, give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.